Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about the push press while putting up some of my older push press footage from recently, even though I only recently started doing the exercise. Yes, I know my technique isn't great, but at least you guys can see the exercise being performed up above. Now, one of the things I want to point up front, because a couple people have commented on the push press stuff, like one person had said when I did my video earlier today about closed chain versus open chain exercises that the push press is in fact an open chain, not a closed chain exercise. Well, that's a point of contention. It creates some confusion just because it's a multi-part exercise. It has two different movements. The little dip you do and then push upwards is actually a closed chain movement because you're pressing against the floor. Your body is moving. You're pressing against the floor on that. Now, we could argue about the lockout at the top being an open chain, and they might have a valid point there, but to say that the overall movement is open chain and not closed chain or doesn't have a closed chain component is simply not true. So please refer to that video if you guys don't know what I'm talking about. I did it today, the same day. Another thing that was kind of funny was that a person had said in one of my push press videos I was doing the overhead press wrong, that there's no way I'm isolating the shoulders and it's a terrible exercise, that I'm cheating the weight. Again, a case of a person probably not understanding what a push press is. So some people are going to ask, what would be the purpose of doing a push press? What benefits would it have for you over doing other types of overhead work or even other types of work for explosiveness? And let's break that down a little bit. First of all, as far as explosiveness goes, there have been studies out there that are done on this that show that it creates more leg explosiveness and lower extremity explosiveness than the jump squat does, which is actually a very highly reputed and very strongly accepted exercise for building leg explosiveness in athletes, behind doing your heavy work like your squats, but doing jump squats. Well, the push press has been found in a few studies to actually be superior for generating leg explosiveness. So it is a fantastic exercise for producing explosiveness not only in the lower extremities but in the entire body, because the push press is truly a full body movement when you think about it and look at all the muscles that are involved in this exercise. So developing explosiveness is one reason. You're going to develop more explosiveness and particularly more core stability and core strength on top of it than you are with any other sort of overhead pressing, including even standing presses. Now, another thing that needs to be noted, it has been found when you look at the anatomy of it, because of the nature of the movement, the way that you follow through with it and push through with it, and the way your torso moves, we have found that the push press actually is easier on your rotator cuffs and actually strengthens your rotator cuffs more than any sort of seated dumbbell or barbell press that you would do for your shoulders. So for people who are looking for injury prevention and strengthening the rather fragile rotator cuffs, the push press is simply a superior exercise for this. Although all standing presses are, still a valuable thing for people who are wanting to avoid injury. Now, we could argue about actual shoulder development being equal on other forms of presses, and that's a valid point because your shoulders can only get as involved as they're physically capable of getting involved with any pressing exercise. If they're your limiting factor, that's going to be the most weight that you can push. And even with the assistance of the legs, your shoulders are only going to generate so much power in any overhead pressing movement. And if you're fatiguing them, it's going to be the same in terms of shoulder development overall. No real difference there between any of them in regards to that, if deltoids are your only concern. But a lot of guys, again, are doing these compound movements to bring up a number of potential weak links to get stronger and bigger overall. And you're going to find that the push press is superior for the triceps. And that actually makes a lot of sense when you look at it and think about what's going on with it. You can move more weight out of the bottom because usually things like your chest and the anterior deltoids are going to limit quite a bit how much weight you can get started at the bottom. But with the additional leg drive going, they can move a heavier weight while still generating the same amount of force at the bottom. But what you find is that you're having to lock out a heavier weight due to the leg drive, and that becomes largely tricep dominant. The exercise does at that point. And even if you're only factoring in the concentric component, but when you start factoring in the eccentric component, and we know the eccentric portion of the lift has its own unique role for hypertrophy, for putting size on a muscle, for giving you gains. And because you are having to start the eccentric from the lockout phase with a heavier weight than you otherwise might do, you are doing a heavier eccentric up there at the very part where your elbows start to break again and the weight starts to come down. That's putting a heavier than normal eccentric load on the triceps than you would be getting with any other exercise that's an overhead press. And so therefore, people who have lagging triceps, the push press might actually be a very, very valuable exercise for bringing them up, for making the triceps both bigger and stronger. So again, guys who need more arm development, the push press might be a useful tool. I feel like it seems to be helping mine a little bit personally also. So I'm glad that I've added it back in for that. Now, for guys who want to develop a bigger bench press, a better max bench, again, the push press is going to be a really excellent exercise for that, even when compared against other overhead work, and there's a reason for that. Oftentimes, guys are doing a lot of overhead work to get more shoulder development because their shoulders in general might be a weak link in their bench press, but they're also training them to work in isolation. The best benchers in the world generally have a small amount of leg drive, a leg drive component to their bench press. You are still training your body to work as one unit on the push press. So if you are using a push press, you are training your shoulders to fire with a bit of leg drive. That is going to have, in some cases, not all cases, but in some cases, that is going to have a potential for better carryover to your bench press. And I think, as many people have pointed out in the past, show me a guy who has a really powerful push press, even who doesn't bench press, and you go put him on the flat bench and have him start benching, and that guy will tend to have a very, very strong bench press, sometimes an amazing bench press, even if he hasn't trained the movement or doesn't train it very regularly. So the push press itself is a tremendous developer of the bench press for people who want it. Another thing to factor in too, because of its carryover to other things, anyone who's in any sort of contact sport, if you think about the movement pattern involved, whether you're hitting someone on a football field or a sumo wrestler or even a regular Greek wrestler, or anyone who needs to even punch forward or hit someone in a combat related sport, if you think about the angles involved, the push press is going to be one of the superior exercises for that because of the upward angle of it, and it happens to be one of the very few exercises that uniquely allows you to develop very, very large amounts of explosiveness in the legs while doing a press. So you are training your body to utilize that leg component better. Well, in any sort of contact sport, that is going to be a very, very valuable motor pattern to train because it's going to carry over directly to hitting someone out on a playing field or in a ring. Which also brings us to the point of real world strength. Again, my talk earlier about metafunctional training, this exercise is very multifaceted. It trains some very useful real world motor patterns that could be useful in physical struggles, life and death situations. Out on a playing field, it has a very, very functional motor pattern. And therefore, it's going to carry over to a lot of other things that you might actually want strength for. It's going to be very useful for that. And something that really can't be overlooked there, it is a full body exercise that develops power, explosiveness, speed, strength, and size through most of the major muscles in the human body. So what about people who just want to get really fit as quickly as possible, but they don't want to dedicate their lives to the gym? They don't want to spend an hour or two in the gym every day. That's the majority of people who train. Exercises like this, the push press in particular, it recruits most of the muscles in the body in some way. It works different functions. It works a lot of different things very efficiently and very effectively with a lot of real world carryover. This exercise is something that anyone who doesn't want to spend enormous amounts of time strength training in the gym but still wants to get the benefits of strength training as efficiently as possible, again, metafunctional training, the push press needs to be high on their list of priorities. This exercise is simply so versatile and useful and does so many different things for you that someone who wants to be very efficient with their training should definitely be doing it, or at least consider doing it. Even if you don't do it year round, it should be worked into various phases of your training. And that doesn't matter whether you're a competitive athlete. It doesn't matter whether you're some sort of physique competitor like a bodybuilder or bikini competitor, because again, you may not want to spend all of your time in the gym lifting weights. You might have other things that you need to prioritize with your training. People who just want to get into shape quicker, they want fitness faster, they want functional strength that's going to be useful in the real world for some of their day-to-day activities, people with physically demanding jobs that might have some sort of physical struggle component involved, like a lot of types of first responders. and people who just want to, again, get into shape and even lose weight faster, because exercises like this are going to be the most bang for your buck for speeding up your metabolism with your gym time, so that people who want to lose weight more quickly to get into shape can spend more time doing cardio, burning the real calories with all the new metabolism that they've built up training. So overall, the push press is an amazing exercise. It's an excellent exercise. It's useful for so many different people that it's something that most of you should be considering doing it at this point if you aren't already. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.